I am Kelly from K Collections Photography, and you are on episode 2 of Split Happens, and I am joined by
Jessica Maloney, your licensed mental health therapist and business coach, and I'm excited to be here.
I love that. Thank you for joining today, Jess. We usually have a third counterpart. Today, it's just me and Jess. We're vibing out and we are talking all things relatability. I personally am at the end of my divorce. Jess has experienced one herself, and we're here to just talk all the nitty gritty today.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's talk about it, because we were saying we know that there's a lot of people out there who are probably feeling half in, half out. They can't decide. Is there an opportunity to make things better? Is working on it, even an option? I will start off by saying, I think if there is anybody out there who is listening and, digging into this for some support, it definitely takes the willingness of two people if you're going to try and work on it.
Absolutely. I mean, all relationships do.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and it feels like a lot. It's very overwhelming when you're not sure what the right thing to do is or what the next thing to do is. Yeah. And I think that I think we kind of talked about this last time, just this concept of this personal development journey is so essential. And it first starts with you before anything even happens, before the split happens, So it's really thinking about is this life the life that I want to be living? Is this what you envisioned?
Right.
And if not, you might have to recreate what you thought life was supposed to be. And I think that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
It's not always the person. It's not always one thing, but it's the life that you thought you were going to have.
100%. And it's the fear of how much harder life is, because it's just going to get harder in different ways. And I think for most people out there contemplating it, I will say the one factor I think most people lean into is financially. I think finances are a huge issue as to why people just stay. And for me, I was petrified that I was now going to be an overworked single parent, which I always say, I feel like I'm one step above that, and I leaned into that fear for years prior to pulling the trigger on making those changes. You really have to decide what kind of hard you want to deal with. And let me tell you something, when there's a will, there's a way. As long as you're helping yourself, the universe will help you. So if anybody is out there and needs to hear that testament, when you have no other choice but to make it happen for yourself, you do, you 100% do. And I think you can definitely testify to that as well.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, you said something and it reminds me of a quote from one of my mentors, Les Brown. He says, do what is easy and your life will be hard. Do what is hard and your life will be easy.
I love that.
I know.
Oh, give me chills.
Oh, good.
Literally.
But it's so true. But I think what people get caught up in is well, they're both hard.
Yeah.
Right. But what you know is what we call the easy route. It's your comfort zone. It's not comfortable, but it's familiar.
Yeah.
So it's recognizing that you are staying in a place that's comfortable, quote unquote, but it's really just familiar because you've learned how to exist inside of this.
Yeah.
You've learned how to live here. You thought that this was going to be it. So you've built roots. You've allowed yourself to settle down. Right. And the idea of disrupting that, the idea of change, we were talking about this before, it's uncomfortable for most people.
Oh yeah.
So it goes into finances, it goes into the kids, and it goes into the comfort zone. And for different people, it's going to be different, of course. But I would ask the listeners, what's one thing that you are doing because it's comfortable that it's no longer serving you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say the last 3 years of my marriage, I knew the answer for myself and I knew exactly why I was staying. I'm a creature of habit, and then there would be some good days mixed into the feeling of me knowing this wasn't for me anymore. And then you just lean back into those good days and then it becomes very cyclical, and that's exactly where it ended up for me in a very unhealthy way. I remembered hearing people saying oh, so-and-so is getting divorced. And I was jealous.
There's a sign.
So when people say to me, I'll just have casual conversations with people I know or I don't know, and I'll be oh yeah, I'm going through a divorce. And when people go to say, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm oh, no, you have it all wrong.
Yeah.
This is a victory for me. I am proud that I am getting divorced. It's almost done. So divorce getting, I'm really proud that, I didn't fall in. We were talking about this prior to recording. I didn't fall into this pandemic of choosing to stay and then choosing to fulfill what I needed in life outside of my marriage while still being in a marriage, because there's a whole lot of that going on right now. And I looked at my ex-husband and I said, that is not, how I want to live life. That I do not want to jump on that bandwagon. So I looked at him straight in the eyes and I said, I don't want to be with you. I want to go live my life first and foremost for myself. And I want to allow for the opportunity, if I do meet somebody, that I'm meeting them the right way. I'm not doing that 1 foot in, 1 foot out pandemic that's happening right now. People are scared. They don't want to leave. They have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And we are living in a whole cheating nation right now. And I personally am so tired of it. I get very angry at people. I see a lot of anonymous posts on these like social media platforms, like, I'm in love with my ex-boyfriend and I want to reach out to him, but I'm still married. And I'm like, no, do the hard work and get divorced.
Well, I think that's like, that's a sign, right? Like the universe or God or whatever it is that you believe in is kind of showing you that where you are right now is maybe not where you're meant to be. It's not where you're supposed to be forever. And like, listen, I think that married women can have crushes, married women can have like old flames,
Sure.
and like, it's okay to like kind of have that attraction to somebody else. But if it's making you question on if you're with the right person or if you should stay where you are, then that's kind of like a red flag we should pay attention to.
It's what you do with it. If that feeling is overpowering the connection that you have with somebody that you're choosing to spend your life with,
then it's
time to go.
For sure.
Correct.
And like, I know for me, like what I had to do, because I think everybody stays in a relationship longer than they necessarily want to.
Yeah.
Unless something happens, but because they're just not sure what to do, right? I know for me, like I had to try everything that I possibly could to make it right, to make it better. I had to do that for me.
Right.
Not necessarily for the relationship. That's what I told myself.
Right.
But I had to know that I tried everything that I possibly could to make this relationship work because this was the dream. This was happily ever after.
Right.
And the idea of that being shattered in front of me was more than I could bear in the moment. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. We're going to go to therapy. I'm going to talk to you about it. I'm going to communicate my feelings. I'm going to get mad at you. I'm going to scream at you. I'm going to cry. I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to tell you how I feel, to tell you what I want, and to see if it's something that we could fix.
It sounds like you had a counterpart that was even willing to go to counseling.
Well, I mean, kicking and screaming, but yes, we made it.
Oh, yeah, no. I think sometimes people find themselves in situations where that's not even an option and where the other person doesn't even want to meet them. I've heard situations where people feel that the other spouse thinks that going to counseling makes it worse, and that their problems should stay within their own home.
And you want to know why?
And that a relationship can be, a therapist can be biased. I'm not afraid of, bashing anybody by saying I was with somebody who didn't want to go to counseling because he was afraid that the counselor would side and it would not work out in his favor.
Right. Well, that's exactly it. They're afraid that the therapist is going to side with whoever the other counterpart is.
Yeah.
And listen, as a therapist, like I obviously hear the whole story, but there are some times where one of them is right.
Right.
And like, I've been on the guy's side before and I'm like, you need to listen to what he's saying. You need to listen to what he's asking for.
But when people can't see outside of themselves, they get aggressive and they feel like they're being attacked. And to me,
this is doing nothing. This is not helping. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Yeah.
To me, that just sounds like, just in generally, not even speaking on behalf of our own situations, that just sounds like somebody who is just not in a position to be counseled because they're not open to see outside of themselves. Yeah. And I will tell you something, we've talked a little bit, I'll touch on my own situation post-divorce. I'm willing to say sorry for the things I need to say sorry for. I'm not perfect, never claimed I was perfect. I'm willing to accept where I could have done better in my marriage, all of those things. And I just, I wish that the other counterpart could at least say it's said and over. It won't make the relationship whole again, ever again, because I've moved on for myself in so many ways since then. But just dealing with a co-parent after divorce, it would just be nice if people could do the work and see outside of themselves. And I just think there's a lot of people who can't,
There's a lot of people that won't. like doing the work, like that's just in general.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't want to do the work because it's everybody else's fault and it's, you know, all the circumstances around them.
Yeah.
You know, so if somebody else is not doing the work, they're never going to be able to see your perspective. Not even that you're right or wrong, but they're choosing not to see that because they're so focused in on what their truth is that there's no room for anything else.
It's wild. I do have to say too, like there's this whole factor. Another reason I stayed outside of finances is because I don't know if you felt this post-divorce, like I was almost fearful, like all the ugly ways that being in this relationship made me feel. Like, you know, they say like a person can bring out the best in you or the worst in you. And my marriage brought out the worst in me. I didn't like who I was because of the stress and the weight and the incompatibility. And there was a piece of me who honestly thought like, maybe this is as good as it gets. Maybe this, you know, like I've actually started to like devalue myself in that marriage, you know, and that was another reason why I didn't pull the trigger and I stayed for so long. And there was a piece of me that was fearful of those ugly, you know, anxiety, short fused, you know, oh my God, is this who I am? Because I didn't even like when I was being that way. And I have to say, anybody who's listening, it's very refreshing to rediscover myself and the pieces of myself that were so hidden. I'm not an anxious, short fused person. I was in a situation that was just constantly bringing that out in me. So there is a lot of beauty in giving yourself permission to refine yourself and trust that you are not all the ugly things that your past relationship brought out in you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But that's also a lot of deep inner work. Yeah. You know, that's like learning to trust yourself.
Yeah.
Learning to give yourself permission to like try new things, like scary things.
Yeah.
You know, like I know for me, like when I was trying to figure out like what I was going to do, like one of the hardest things, and this might sound silly to some, but some women are going to relate. Like after I had my daughter and she was a baby and my son was 3, taking them out together was like the scariest thing for me.
Okay.
Because my son was wild and my daughter she had colic, so she was just crying all the time. And going places felt really hard, getting them in the car, getting them out the car. And like, that was one of the things I remember being like, okay, we're going to get in the car. We're going to go to the library.
Oh, I love this for you.
But like, that was like one of the things that felt like a mountain. That was really a small thing that I had to conquer. Yes. To learn to trust myself. That was a personal development strategy, if you will, learning to trust myself by doing something that felt really, really hard.
I love
you know, so if you're listening, like whatever it is that feels hard for you, no matter how big or small it is, allow yourself permission to like try to conquer that mountain.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
You're going to figure it out. You're going to climb over that mountain. You're going to get through it. Because what would the option have been? Sit at home and never go out? No.
Yeah.
So you
wait till they're older.
Your separation from your spouse forced you to
but that was before we were even like separated.
You started moving towards those changes.
Yeah. Cause I was like, I didn't like where I was at. He wasn't willing to, you know, do a lot with me. So I was like, okay, like I can't just sit here. I don't like this either. So I was uncomfortable here. I was uncomfortable about going out, but I was like, again, which one is really harder?
Right.
Which one is going to actually yield me results?
Right.
And like, I'm going to give you another quote because
please, I love quotes. I live by quotes.
Sir Edmund Hillary was the first person to climb Mount Everest. And the first time he failed, he said, I will be back because as a mountain, you cannot grow, but as a man, I can.
Wow. So the mountain's never going to change, but he can change and he's coming back to the things he cannot change. Oh, that's deep. He dug within himself. That is really deep. Yeah. I will say for me, the fearful things of like, it was the technicality is like, you know, I don't have a dad. My dad passed away. So my entire life, I was very close to my dad. My dad took care of the little things like filling my tires and changing my windshield wipers. And yes, I'm very strong and I can definitely tap into like my masculine energy, you know, but I've never had to like worry about like scheduling the oil tank, like all these little things. Like, well, what if there's like leaves in the gutter? I'm not going to like those stupid, you know, maybe, you know, gender role things that my ex did take on a little bit more than me. I hung on to fear that there was no way I was going to be able to maintain everything I did plus all the things that he did. 2 years later, I think the house has never looked better.
We'll take it.
I mean, like, I learned how to take out the garbage on garbage nights, and I learned all the things, like the little silly things.
Yeah, you figure them out.
I'm really, 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 really proud of those little stupid things. Like, I'm taking my truck to get tires. Like,
I know. And you know what, too? Like, even just asking for help.
Mm-hmm. You know, I'm still not really good
like,
at that.
You know, just being able to go somewhere and be like, this is what's going on. Like, what do you know?
Right.
How can you help me?
Right. No, you're right. And you'd be amazed to see how many people are willing to want to help somebody who's juggling a lot, you know, and it's cool.
But let's also, I just want to take this opportunity to like normalize that, like the ex might not want to.
Right.
You know, like I think that there's a lot of women that will kind of lean back into the person that used to do that. And listen, if you're in a healthy dynamic where there's amicable divorce, like, and your children live with you and your ex-husband is going to help out because the children live in the home. But sometimes, no matter what the situation is, they will not be. Well, I think we can relate to these things. Will not help you just because of who you are.
Yeah, I have no problem saying it because it's factual. It's just my co-parent loves watching me squirm on my worst days. And I think that is horrible. And I have seen examples very firsthand of men who have just said, my marriage didn't work. My responsibilities are still my responsibilities. I will go above and beyond my responsibilities, and I will still provide and care for a family that is separated. So yes, I love that you did make a point to let women know that not all marriages have to be bitter on the other end once they conclude. There are men out there who will do the work and who will say this didn't work, but we're still going to be a unit forever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you have children, like, you know, it's for them.
Right.
You know, and listen, there will be dynamics with co-parenting where there's a lot of spite involved and there's a lot of targeting and there's a lot of vindictive action. But, you know, there are ones that can be amicable. And I think that it goes down to what we were talking about before, that personal growth.
Yeah.
The recognition that it doesn't have to be your fault or my fault or his fault or her fault. It's just, this is how things played out.
Yeah.
What I tell all my clients is like, you take accountability for your part in it.
Right.
You recognize they also played a part in it.
Right. It takes two for a marriage to not work.
So we could sit here for hours and talk about how they did this and they did this and they did this. Yeah. But I could also, you know, come to a place where I can say like, okay, well, here's where I, you know, struggled and here's where I could do better. Yeah. And that's, you know, a goal of mine in my continuous journey is to always try to improve, do better. But again, we have to grow together if we're going to be moving together.
Correct. Yeah. And you know what? I like how you said that you started making changes before the marriage actually ended. You know, if I could make a suggestion, practice little pieces of independence before you pull. I see so many women on these groups and they're like, I've been a stay-at-home mom. I haven't worked in 5+ years. I know that it's time for the divorce. I want a divorce, but I literally know my alimony is only going to last so long. They're literally not in a position to leave. So like, if you could offer any advice to a woman like that, mine would be start making little changes. I'm not saying just jump right off the freaking ship. That might not work for everybody. Of course, if you're in a violent or an abusive situation, then there's resources. But if it's just a matter of compatibility, start setting yourself up way before you pull that trigger. And I'm not saying this to be like vindictive. I'm saying it to be smart and be stable for your children and for the unit post-divorce. So if you could offer any advice to a woman who's listening right now in that regard, where she just literally is not in a position to go, what would you offer her?
Honestly, first things first, stop saying I can't and start saying I haven't tried that yet.
I like that.
Or haven't done that in a long time, right? If you haven't been in work in 10 years because you've been raising kids and like taking care of business, then yes, it's going to be hard to get back out there, but you can. Yeah. You know, it might not be at the same level you left, but you can. Yeah. Right. So start exploring your options. I always say like knowledge is power.
100%.
Like gain information to help you figure out what the next move is, right? A lot of people say I can't do something because you don't know enough about it.
Right.
because you don't know how to do it.
Right.
Not being able to do something and not knowing how to do it are two different things.
I like that. I think just the want to make that change is enough of the spark to get that fire going, you know? Join, resources. Right now, one of my goals for this podcast is to have, community meetups so that you can find other people that are, moms can link up with each other and help, of course, trusted resources of women that can help with looking out after one another. And like you said, don't be afraid to ask for help, make new connections.
Yes. Make new connections, like new friends, not necessarily people who've been through it, but people who are potentially, more expansive thought leaders, or expensive thinkers.
Yep.
Because I remember talking to a friend of mine and she was like, you should just stay. It's easier. And that felt uncomfortable for me because I was like, I knew that wasn't the right answer. And I was like,
not the one you were looking for in that moment.
It wasn't. That's when I knew. Cause I'll ask people should I wear this or this? And they say the thing I don't want. And I'm like,
I don't know if I trust you ever again.
Now I know what I actually want. Cause sometimes it's hard to make decisions.
Right.
But surround yourself with new people who are just, who just think differently. And another thing that I did that I found really valuable was to contact a lawyer, to just have a consultation. What are my rights?
There's a lot. And listen, I'm not trying to go into legalities at all. If you could do mediation, just do that. Just do it.
If you trust them.
Yeah, 100%. And it can, and it will. It probably will get messy. And there is a percentage that don't. And if anybody's listening, and I hope that you fall into that demographic of people, it is possible. It's not all horrible,
Yeah.
So.
And, listen, any significant life change, a divorce, it can change the trajectory of your entire life. It did for me. It turned me into an entirely different person.
100%.
I wanted to be like a princess, I was when I grew up, I was like, I want to be a princess. I want to get married, live in a castle.
I wanted to be, I went to college, but the only thing I ever knew I wanted to do was keep a home and be home with my children and have cheesy little, parties for them and be at their school all the time.
Yes.
That did it for me from a very young age. So yes, I have found different pieces of me. I have never been more proud of myself than I am in the middle of a divorce.
Amen. I can say that about where I am right now. And it's a beautiful thing to gain that. I never had that as a woman, for the first 35 years of my life. I didn't even know who I was. So the fact that in the last 5, I've become so many different versions. I feel like I was Alice in Wonderland right now. I've become so many different versions of myself in the last 5 years that
girl.
I'm not even the same girl that got divorced,
Same. I'm having an art show tomorrow. I'm like, who are you?
Hell yeah, I'll be there.
I'm so excited. Have fun with it too. Have some fun,
Well, that's a whole nother episode.
We'll save that for next time for sure. Jess, I had a lot of time, a really good time talking about the nitty gritty, I think that's really the foundation, the line that separates those who are staying because they're scared and the ones who are pulling the trigger because they found it within themselves. And I'm glad we were able to talk about it today.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this, I think that there's a through line from not doing it because you're scared and then pulling the trigger, not doing it because you're scared is your flag, is your light bulb moment. You're like, okay, this feels like I should do it, but it's really scary. That's your warning sign. That's your buzz. That's your alarm. Be like, hey, it's time to work on you.
Okay.
Because if you work on you, that decision is going to be so clear. You're going to know exactly what to do. Because you're going to work on you and one of two things are going to happen.
Okay.
You're going to grow and it's going to force the other person that you're with to grow with you.
Which we hope for all of you. We're not here to advocate divorce. We're here to talk about it and
normalize it.
Exactly.
The other thing is you're going to grow and they're not, and they're going to resent you for it. And you're going to be like, wow, I've advanced so much. I don't even see us together anymore.
That's what I'm saying. There would never be any hope for recuperation because I have gone to 3 states past where I am.
Yeah.
So, this was a beautiful episode.
Yeah. Always a good conversation.
Yeah. Thanks for chatting, girly.
Anytime.
And you guys, have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.